Welcome everybody to the Higanbana Bookclub. Tonight we will be discussing chapters 5 through 7 of the second night, and I am here joined by 3 auspicious guests. Starting from the top, Aspirety.
Yo guys, I'm the host of this podcast.
That's what you'd like us to believe. Next is Vice.
Hello, I'm back.
Welcome back. And thirdly, we have, for the very first time, making his triumphant introduction, Zosonte.
Hello, good evening. It's an honor to be here today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining
Thank you
us.
for that wonderful intro message.
You're very welcome. Now you take it from here.
As said, we're going to discuss the final 3 chapters of the second night. So this will be our final Higanbana Bookclub podcast, and it's sad that it's coming to an end, but, I think we've had some amazing discussion over these past few weeks from the people who have contributed, and I'm excited to finally wrap this up. So let's just dive right into chapter 5, My Best Friend. For a brief introduction, this chapter is about Michiru and her friend Tomoko, I believe.
That sounds right.
And the chapter starts with them they're both kind of friends through their mutual interest in the occult, which is interesting because I think up to this point we'd kind of painted Michiru as a bit of a loner type character. So to see she has such a close friend was a bit of a surprise. And I don't know when this takes place chronologically because the scene ends and then we find out that she's died in a random accident, like she just fell and hit her head. And then the rest of the chapter is basically about the grieving process there. And Michiru, as she would, summons demons to bring her friend back from the dead.
The only logical thing to do, of course.
She basically becomes a little Kinzo. And I think this is interesting, in sort of the mythos, is this is definitely not yokai. This is a Western demon, or demons. I think it was plural. They were kind of ambiguous about that. But I believe they mentioned that they're part of the 72 great demons, which were also referenced in Umineko. So there's probably some reference to the it's based on the Lesser Key of Solomon. So it's it's like Western demonology. So that's a bit of an interesting spin on things away from the Japanese yokai, which I thought was interesting. Because the yokai basically say that we can't bring anyone back from the dead. That would require tremendous magical power. Okay, then fuck Japanese yokai. I'm gonna get a fucking Western demon.
Yeah, definitely. Gonna talk to someone way more powerful than anything we've seen before. And be like, hey, why don't you just bring my dead friend back to life? That would be very nice of you, Mr. Demon Sir. And it doesn't go too poorly, surprisingly.
Yeah. And so basically, there's this whole plan goes through, and she's about to resurrect her friend for good. She was going to use I think it was a doll she had as a vessel, and then
It was a teddy bear, right?
Stuffed animal.
Yeah. And then Tomoko is like, fuck that. Why would I want to come back to life and be a shitty doll? And then, that kind of threw me for a bit of a loop because I wasn't expecting that sort of reaction. But and it's just I thought that would be the kind of message of the chapter is that you don't really know someone, which is a really depressing message. But then it twisted around at the very end where it's oh no, I was just being a bitch so she wouldn't resurrect me and keep dwelling on the past and sacrificing her greetings. We didn't even talk about that part of the contract either.
It's okay.
There's lots here that we can focus on, so I'm just going to give you guys the floor here.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to focus on that last bit. I guess it's the last part of the chapter. Somebody else will have to take the greetings bit, but I I was a little concerned when I was reading it and Tomoko came back and was like, you know what? I actually hated you the entire time. You know, like, our friendship was nothing. I would rather just be dead than talk with you. That was terrifying to me. It's revealed to be like a big charade even. Like, she's just doing it to make sure that Michiru doesn't, you know, throw her life away. Doesn't focus on this past relationship when she could be making new ones. But I don't know. I question how it was that Michiru didn't see through that. Like, I don't know.
Whoa,
like, they're supposed to be like really good friends.
She did.
Is it? I better have another look at that then.
Because, you know, the fact that she got over it so quickly is quite telling to me.
You think so? Maybe.
Is that the only sign
like
we have?
Like, she was all like, you know, even so, she's still my best friend, and like,
it's true.
It definitely seems to indicate that she like got the hint.
Maybe. I don't know. I might have to reread it. But yeah,
I wish these demons had sprites though.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
yes.
That would be pretty great. But like, I don't know. I feel like part of the point of the Western demons is that they are kind of, in a similar way to the yokai, they're kind of inhuman.
Definitely.
Which I thought was really weird. I thought it was a really fun point, because then Ryukishi has that line about the demonic union that's getting really like a bit of a sticker for like making sure that contracts are done properly. Like, Ryukishi really makes it a point to humanize these inhuman
Yes, that's
creatures.
very true.
I thought that was really
That
cool.
might be like another reference to the Lesser Key of Solomon that I'm not aware of, but like there's a hierarchy to the demons and shit.
Yeah.
But no, it's always interesting how Ryukishi does that. It's kind of like we don't really know the motives of these demons too well. Like, we know that they actually they were tempting Michiru. They really wanted her to go through with it so that they could like feast on her soul. But despite that, they seem like pretty pretty chill people. I don't know. I like them.
Like, yeah, like
very
if you
fair.
unpack the actual deal, they said if you enter, let me see if I can find it. The price of the contract is all the greetings for a lifetime. You'll be bound by this contract for all time until you die. If you violate the contract, the resurrection will be undone. So the actual contract is just that as long as she doesn't break the contract, then the resurrection will continue. But that means that at any time she can cancel it. Like, this is not a contract that will stick around forever and she has no choice in the matter. She actually has a lot of agency in like seeing how long this contract will go for. She could break it at any time, which I thought was very interesting. It's very fair.
Yeah,
honestly.
it is very fair.
Surprisingly.
I wanna take a look at this as a Japanese reader. Because if you're so used to hearing the stories about the yokai, and it's just a common thing in Japan, and then you're introduced to something like a Western demon that you probably have no idea what it can do, what they're about, and then to find out that, oh, they're just totally fair, they're not betraying you at all, I think that would really have subverted a lot of Japanese readers' expectations.
Yeah, probably. Like, I think a lot of people were very suspicious of him when he first turned up. Or them. I still don't know if it was like... I think it was like at least multiple demons. One thing that really stood out to me is like when Tomoko is slamming down Michiru, and the demons are just like, damn, even we feel sorry for you.
Oh my god.
It's like, wow.
Oh, poor Michiru. Yeah. Why don't we talk about the greetings? Because that's like the price of the deal. Well, that and the burning of the like old notes that Michiru made with Tomoko. But like, I feel like the greetings really is the kind of objective like price. The lasting price for this deal. I think that Zosonte, you had something to say about greetings and how they're used and what that might mean.
Well, what Michiru is doing is basically giving up her ability to talk to anyone else ever again. And she's fine with that because she's a loner. She doesn't think she'll ever grow out of that.
There are ways to do it. You could like pretend you're mute
Well, I suppose so, but if you think of it from, people who are emotionally mature, that would be such a hindrance.
It would be.
But to Michiru, it's not.
Yeah. I guess, the whole point there is that she isn't very good at social interaction in the first place, and, I think it's more symbolic there of the fact that she probably won't make any more friends as long as she has her one best friend. It's like a sort of obsessive attachment, which is an interesting thing to talk about, honestly, because even outside of grieving processes, how easy it is for us to get so attached to one person in our lives. I think this is very much a product of our society where everyone wants to find their significant other, whether that be a best friend or a companion or an actual someone they want to marry, I guess. But there seems to be so much pressure focused on forming these really meaningful relationships. Man, I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm just kind of trying to extrapolate.
I'm with you. No. I'm totally behind you. There's an idea in society that you're supposed to find this perfect person that completes you. You're supposed to find the opposite that attracts. You're supposed to find the person who wants to make you better. It's this. I would say it's a fantasy. I think that that's up for debate, but I don't think that you are going to find the perfect person.
Okay.
You can find someone who's very close, but I don't think that perfection exists in that form.
And then we have the question there of if something happens to endanger our relationship with this person that we consider so important to our lives, that can be very damaging.
Because you're relying on them so much.
Yeah, it's at that point, they're part of you. They're part of your identity. And so to have that taken away, it's what the hell am I living for anymore? I think that's exactly what Mitsuru was going through, and just...
Yeah, definitely.
That's why she wanted so badly to resurrect her, because she couldn't see any hope in life without that person by her side.
Yeah, definitely.
Man, there's plenty. I'm sure the fans are going to speculate whether this is homo or not, but who knows?
What? Oh my goodness.
Anyway, I've dealt with a lot of situations like this, whether it be through death or through a bad breakup, where people just can't find hope in life without that one person. And I think this chapter is sending a message of, as long as you're living, there's still hope. There's gonna be more people out there that you can confide in and find fulfillment in, and limiting yourself to one person too much might be even unhealthy, I guess. That's
I think there's a good message.
Certainly.
So you go.
Oh, well, I wanted to take a step back and say that Michiru is a child.
Yes.
And children form these connections instantly. Not in the way adults can ever do, because children are much more innocent. So, even something like just saying hello to Michiru from Tomoko, that would be enough for Michiru to say, oh, look, I've made a new friend already.
Yeah, very much. Overall impression of this chapter, do you guys like it?
It was alright.
It was okay.
It was chill. Honestly, it's not his best writing, but I liked the message. The idea that you should form connections with people, be a social person. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely. I've kind of made my peace with the chapter. I had my concerns a bit when I first read it, and it kind of threw off my expectations a little bit. But I think the message is good, and I'm happy enough with how they accomplished it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Chapter 6. What was the name of this one? A Thistle for Revenge.
Oh my goodness.
A Thistle for Vengeance.
Vengeance. Sorry. This is going to be another interesting one. Carrying over from the controversy of Utopia, we have this sequel, which has its own controversies that we're going to deal with.
It's great. I love it.
For the record, I love this chapter. I'd say it's maybe my second favorite of them all. I know not everyone here shares my opinion.
Look, I enjoyed it. I just had some issues with the ending. It's okay. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Let's start from earlier on. So
Start from the top.
basically, we had this new kid. Forgettable name, Kun.
Masaki. Yeah.
Masaki.
Well, I misspelled his names about 5 times in my forum post. Vice, you had to point it out to me. Like, I just could not remember what his name was.
Masaki. And so this kind of introduces a new element to Yukari's new classroom, where he is someone who is being bullied, but he refuses to admit it because of male pride or something.
Yeah.
And so Yukari is unable to help him, and the bullying keeps getting worse, and that's when Masaki's considering killing himself, and Higanbana's, yeah, do it, kill yourself.
Oh, such a good scene, though. Oh my goodness. Can we look the scene when Higanbana has a literal field of Higanbana opening up, literally blossoming, waiting for Masaki's death, and then Marie shouting, "Flowers do not bloom in death." Oh, or what was the exact line? Point is, there are no flowers that can bloom in death. That's right. That scene, I want to see animated so badly. Because I can imagine, the lilies, swaying in the breeze, and this, very ominous feeling, cutting between Masaki and Higanbana, and then a very awkward interruption of Marie, struggling through the lilies to get to Higanbana and just slap her.
It was a very, visual scene, I guess.
It was very cinematic, and I loved it.
Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah. That might have been my favorite scene in the whole chapter. Yeah, sorry, continue, please.
And then, of course, Masaki goes thinking in the opposite direction of, why would I kill myself if, I'm not going to accomplish anything with it? I should at least take them down with me. And so it turns into a story of vengeance. And that's where he meets the 3rd ranked, I believe, of the school yokai.
Higanbana is the
4th
3rd ranked.
4th. Oh, that's right. Correct.
Aspy.
I thought you were the Higanbana expert.
Are you challenging the 3rd ranked, the dancing Higanbana?
God damn it.
Oh no.
Back on topic. They meet the 4th ranked yokai, Azami. And Azami has this thistle, which anyone who eats it will be consumed with a lust for revenge. And basically, I guess it turns them into bullies. This is something I don't really like about this chapter personally. I feel like it's unrealistic for someone to just become a bully.
It's not unrealistic for them to become a bully, but the 180 that occurs where Masaki goes from being the bottom of the class to the top of the class doesn't make any sense. That one person would have a monopoly over an entire class of, 20 to 30 students?
Especially when it's someone who's always been a victim. A simple change in personality would not just make his bullying go away. I don't think so. I think that's...
I think there was a line in there somewhere that implied that eating the thistle made Masaki give off some kind of aura that made people afraid of him.
Yeah.
That sounds right. I don't know. From a no yokai, a no magic explanation, I find it a little difficult to believe such a quick turnaround. If he'd gathered a bunch of mooks, if he'd, said, "Okay, big bully, I'm gonna push you out of the way and assume your position as head bully and work with the other bullies."
Yeah.
I think that would have made more sense. Still, I don't think it's too much of an issue because it's all part of the story.
Yeah, but that still kind of takes me out of it a little bit, because you need to approach these stories from a human perspective and how these messages can be applied to humanity, and something like 100%. That is not really applicable to humanity. It's very much a fantastical solution. I'm guessing the implication there is that the thistle also has an effect on anyone that the Masaki's around and makes them more submissive or something.
It affects the whole classroom, I think.
Yeah. I think that's sort of what's implied, but it's still bullshit. So that's my biggest criticism.
If I'm correct about this, there were only a couple of bullies bullying Masaki, if he, I don't know, corralled them, that would leave the whole class pretty much neutral to him, and I suppose he could have I don't know, it's silly, but it's...
classroom. Yeah. It's a bit weird. It's a bit of a weird topic. Still, I don't know. I don't have too much of an issue. It's a ghost story. Like, it's a magic ghost story that's supposed to turn people into bullies. I feel like, as like a metaphor, as the yokai, as an aspect or a concept, if you will, of school life, I feel like it serves its purpose as one of the 8 ghost stories.
I think it's silly.
I
think Sumire was better.
Look, I would not agree with that, but that's okay. That's why we have 4 people on this podcast. It's not just me talking to myself for 3 hours.
Well, anyway, let's continue. What else do we have? We have, like, the situation keeps, like, reversing where it's, like, he's bullying and then he becomes a victim again because everyone, like, stands up against him. Wasn't it, like, some kid, he fell off the balcony?
Yeah, he was playing with some kid's notebook, and he hung it over the balcony, and the kid went to go get it, and he fell off the balcony.
Yeah.
He also bullies Yukari. Like, he kind of pushes her around a little bit, which is kind of the central conflict of this chapter is Yukari and Masaki, because she's like, no bullying, that's bad. I will always oppose bullying, and then. You know, the great game master of this is like, well, what if we take someone that you kind of liked or kind of wanted to protect and make them the bully? Now what do you do? Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the way that they were both written, the way that conflict escalated.
Yeah,
I thought it was really well done.
I can get behind that, yeah.
Yeah. Like, the fact that they still called, the people that Masaki was bullying, they called them one of the bullies, but there was a line which she puts in, which is like, maybe it's not okay to call them bullies anymore, because that's not really what they're doing. Yeah, I thought that was really, like, just well written in general. The ending.
The whole, like, dilemma that Yukari was facing of, like, you know, what is justified, you know, payback, basically. Because at the beginning, she was like, I'll overlook this because, they're kind of dicks and they deserve it. But, like, as it got on, it's like, okay, you've crossed the line, Masaki.
We need to deal with this. Yeah. Definitely.
That's one thing that I really love from a storytelling perspective, because if you start out with Masaki being bullied, you're obviously going to feel sympathetic for him. So when he gets the power to bully back, you know, I was rooting for him, even though I know it was wrong. So when I finally see him, like, teeter off the edge to the point where I don't feel sympathy for him, that must have been when he started bullying Yukari. That was such a satisfying but frustrating moment, I suppose.
100%. Yeah. It was a really, like, logical progression.
1 second. There was a scene that really stood out to me. I need to find it now. Do you really think something that half-assed is going to be enough? They'll have to get down on their knees and profusely apologize that every single day they bullied me. They'll always be the criminals, and I'll always be the victim. The wounds on my heart will never disappear, so they should just apologize forever. Paraphrase that a little bit, but yeah, just this is like a very, very close to my heart topic of someone who is a victim, like believing they are the victim forever and sort of using that against each other, against other people. It's like, yeah, I guess the distorted heart of a victim who believes they are a victim and absolve moral responsibility for all their actions. Just once you're stuck in a victim mentality, like, you want to... Many people take advantage of that and just use that to get privileges from other people, to get, like, to dominate power over others because of their prior victimization. And it feels like this is something we as a society have a lot of trouble dealing with, because we don't want to hurt people who have already been hurt. We don't want to kick people who are already down. So when you see someone who has been victimized through a horrible past and they're using that as leverage to, you know, dominate over others, it's like telling them to back down. They often play the card of, but they've done much worse to me. And just that's like such a good defense, but it feels so manipulative and wrong to me. And that's just something that this chapter like encapsulated really well, and I feel like it's very applicable to the real world. It's a problem.
I agree. The taste of power is quite delicious.
Yeah,
But
I mean, it's a
power through
bulletproof defense.
victimization.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's a perfect defense. You just say, well, this is justifiable. My justice that I'm dealing out to people is okay because they did it to me. Because I was powerless, and now I'm not. And I'll do
it's almost like there's this culture that's emerging where people are trying to compete to see who has the worst life, and so having the worst life gives you like prestige. Almost, it's really warped. It's kind of a big thing that's on the internet these days, and it troubles me a lot.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic because you can't ignore. If we're going to get a little bit political, like someone's lack of privilege, for example, you can't ignore that. But that doesn't mean we can't be critical of use of that argument, of use of...
Yeah, man, I just remembered something, an example from my own life. So, in high school, there was this child that joined us who was like, I think he was missing some limbs. I can't remember which one specifically, but it was like multiple limbs. Like he had a tragic past, which like pretty much doomed him to a horrible future. But then like some like charitable organization took it upon themselves to like, basically reintegrate him into society and get him into a prestigious school and all that. And so get him back on the path to a functional life. And it's like this really like emotional story. And he ended up at our school, and he was kind of one of the most dickish people I've ever met. And it's just like, but the fact that he has like all of like this visible disability, he kind of like got a bit drunk on power and like started using that sympathy that he garnered from people to manipulate them, and it was really twisted.
It's fucked up.
Yeah, and it's just like, wow, like it really goes to show that people really like the narrative of like someone struggling against all odds to rise up in the world, but people like that can still be shitty people, and that's something like we don't really want to acknowledge. Like if anyone would even say that in the face of like a teacher, they'd be like, how dare you, like it's everyone would take his side because he's the victim. And it's
yeah, definitely,
it's like it was really warped. It just made me think of that.
I definitely like your point about it being a narrative, like a tragic, like we joke about characters with a tragic backstory and it's so edgy, but like that's a narrative that's very appealing. The idea that someone can come from nothing or come from a powerless place and then earn their way through society and become a great success. Like that's a narrative that I think we can all get behind. So when you come across a real person who was in a powerless place, and they seem to be filling out that narrative, you want to root for them. You want to be on their side, regardless of how they actually are. The narrative itself has a lot of power to persuade you. I think
it's got really real. I just remembered
it's quite
something
the
from
slippery
my past.
slope.
Absolutely.
It is, but it's like something that's worth discussing because it's a problem which is perpetuated by it being a taboo and people not wanting to get into that sort of messy territory. But being aware of that kind of thing, that people can take advantage of that sort of sympathy they garner from people is like very important, and it's just something I wanted to draw awareness to, and I'm really glad that Ryukishi tackled this topic too. There's bullies come in all forms, basically.
Yep.
Anyway, back on topic. What else we got? There was like lots of talk about how people who are high up in society are all bullies. And I don't know if I identify with that too well, but Vice, I think he has something to say about this.
I did make a comment to that. Like, I can see that maybe some famous people or people being high up in society probably are bullies, but I wouldn't say that all of them are. I did say something like that that there are two ways that you can get people to admire you, and one of those is basically through bullying and abusing power, whereas the other one is just being pretty much a stellar example of a certain lifestyle or something.
Yeah, like a role model.
Yeah, a role model.
And I think that's a good point. That's a very good counterpoint to what Ryukishi was saying. I don't know if it's something he necessarily believes, but the fact that he threw that in was a little bit okay, maybe you're going a bit far with this one, Ryukishi. Maybe you're overreaching a little bit. I'm not going to believe that every politician or every celebrity is inherently a bully. I think it's very much an aspect of dominant. We kind of have a culture, maybe that's related to how capitalism works or whatever, but dominance.
It's about social capital, right? It's about
right.
We garner social capital by doing good things, by having talent, by showing skill. I think that not every celebrity is this way. I think that's silly to think of it like that, because they're all human. But for example, there are plenty of sport stars, football players who do bad things. They break the law, they do drugs, they speed, whatever. But the big finals next week, so we can't throw you in jail today, Mr. Sports Player, sir. We'll just let you off with a slap on the wrist. And this isn't a new thing. People with lots of social capital, the rich and the royalty, for all of history, are going to get away with more than the peasants. It's just a thing. If you have more social capital, you can get away with more in society, even if the laws dictate otherwise.
I think this is just another case study into human nature, because we're still mammals and we still have the alphas and the betas, etc., etc. But because we're humans and we're capable of thought and reflection, instead of backing away like the scavengers would, we become jealous. We seek, to use terms like bullying, which is I can't voice my thoughts on that particular case, but it's just a part of human instinct, really. But because we're capable of thought, it becomes a whole new level of what is moderation, how moderate should we be, and how can we take this to a case-by-case basis.
I guess it's about time to talk about the ending.
Uh-oh.
Run.
Well, I guess this is where I leave. Let's do it.
So
I'll let the opposition speak first.
So after the situation switched around again, and people were starting to bully Masaki again, Yukari first suggested to Sumire, okay, to save Masaki, make the entire class bully me instead. So we basically get back to the situation we had at the end of Utopia in the first night, that the entire class bullies Yukari. And then Yukari, after I think 10 days or something, doesn't have much energy left, and through the urge of the two yokais and Masaki himself, decides to also eat that magical sizzle. And
that really surprised me when it happened.
Yeah, it was definitely a twist.
And then she decided to basically what's the word?
That build up though. That build up where she's coming to the classroom and everyone's like, oh, what's she gonna be like?
Yeah, she basically goes to the front of the class and says, I'm going to bully anyone who starts bullying, and I really want to bully someone.
Yep.
And she basically
excuse.
tries to get that whole no bullying through fear.
She goes full Batman. It's pretty great. She just needs a costume.
So let's talk about this, eh?
And that's basically the problem for me, or that was the problem when I read that ending, because I personally see it hard or almost impossible to get a message to someone through fear.
One line I want to bring up is there's a line that goes somewhat like, "Is a tyrant necessary to enforce peace?" I can't agree with that at all, because one thing, what happens when Yukari moves to another class or something that involves Yukari not being there at all?
Oh man, have you guys seen Legend of the Galactic Heroes?
No.
Nope.
Well,
Nope.
it's I think it's like a 70 episode anime, so I'm not going to tell you to go watch it all right now.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah, that will apparently crush you completely if you try and watch that. It's a real marathon.
Interestingly, kind of applies to this. I'm not going to spoil everything, but it kind of explores the nature of democracy versus dictatorships, and presents the positives and negatives of a dictatorship, and just whatever. Like, if you haven't seen it, you haven't seen it, but if you have, you know what I'm talking about here, where like this chapter is quite reflective of that, and just the idea that we can have a great dictatorship that can benefit this classroom, but when it's gone, what's going to happen, right? That's the open question that I think Vice is struggling with the most. Or Zosonte, I guess. So your problem is that fear can't get a message through.
Yeah.
Is that right? I do wonder about that. I think that the results are more important to me at the moment. I for one definitely believe in a necessary evil. So I guess I can relate a lot to Yukari in some aspects. I kind of like... when I saw this, I was very satisfied because it feels like it's embodying the spirit of the law, which this story has explained many times isn't something which applies to this realm of the school. You know, the school is like a parallel universe where the outside laws of the real world don't really apply, because like it's not like police are roaming the schools. It's entirely the students and the teachers. They comprise the society of the schoolyard, and if the teachers aren't going to do anything to stop bullying, then who is? So that's the kind of situation where Yukari's in, where she needs to take this into her own hands. And so the solution she devises is one to prevent bullying through force. And while it may not be the most effective method in the long term, what it did manage to do was completely exterminate the cycle of bullying that was happening then and there. And so even if she was to stop bullying, then hopefully what I'm thinking is that she could like return everything to a neutral state and prevent it from spiraling out of control again. That's kind of like how I took it.
I mean, you're right in that it's effective short term, but as Vice kind of said, like the problem is that if she leaves school, and then the classroom is basically reset to a time when she's not there, someone else is going to have to take that up who might not do it as well. This is assuming that Yukari can keep up the whole dictatorship thing perfectly for the entire time that she's there, and that there's no problems with anybody challenging her authority, in the same way that Masaki challenged the other bullies. The other thing is that once the people who were bullying before have left Yukari's presence, like, aren't they then gonna start bullying somewhere else? Like, I understand that your point that like it's helping the classroom as it is right now, but I don't think it's a good long-term solution, and that's I guess that's my main problem with it. I don't think that it's sustainable. I think that any element of change will completely tear the whole dictatorship apart, because fear doesn't educate, fear doesn't change people, not for the better anyway. I disagree with the outcome of the ending if it wasn't obvious, but I do think that it's an interesting discussion. I think that the discussion of like what a dictatorship is good. A point that I tried to make in the forums but completely failed with I've done some research into it. So, ancient Rome had dictatorships at certain times. They had dictators who ruled over in times of crisis, but they were always on a very strict time limit, and there were like regulations put in place, that sort of thing.
Right,
and in my opinion,
that's kind of what's going on here.
Well, is it though? Because Yukari wasn't elected. There is no one like watching over her. She just kind of has supplanted herself. I don't know. I have problems with her just kind of saying, I am now in charge of everything and no one will question me. Well,
that's kind of the Thistle thing.
It's true. That is part of the whole Thistle analogy, metaphor thing. I don't know. If I were to suggest a solution, I think that having a student in charge of the rest of the student body in the classroom is a good solution. I think that self-governing is an excellent way of doing things. But I don't approve of the like vigilantism that's going on here. I think that having a teacher approved method, some voting procedure maybe to like, I don't know, maybe the class rep could be the person who's doing this. These are just my thoughts. I'm not,
Well, how would that be different?
But because the students would have chosen her, or the teacher would have chosen her, we would be in a situation where she has some accountability if things go wrong. And a system to elect a new like dictator, right? I don't know. I feel like having some level of control from someone else. As we cover with Misaki, power corrupts, and I feel like the same thing is gonna happen with Yukari.
So you have less faith in Yukari and more faith in the student body.
I have faith in the student body as a whole. I think that having the teachers involved with this process, having everyone work together, I think that's the best way of doing things. I don't have faith with Yukari, as opposed to everyone working as a team.
I don't think the teachers would be able to influence the student body in that way. Because, this is obviously something which has grown wildly out of control with everyone bullying that one student and even the teachers, not caring.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a worst-case scenario. And that's why extreme measures are, I feel, justified in this particular circumstance.
Go ahead, Magus.
No, you go.
Okay. See, my problem here is I don't really see a good answer. Because Yukari doesn't have any power. Her power is entirely coming from Azami and Sumire. So what's stopping them from choosing a new student to overthrow her? Or something like that.
It's like it never ends, right? I'm sure there could be like a Utopia Part 3. Absolutely. There's room
I think Ryukishi wrote himself into a corner here.
Yeah, that's the point though, right? The bullying is cyclical. There's elements of this in all of his other works. The abuse that you suffered, you push onto other people, and the bullying circle goes round and round. And
I think this is a very pessimistic sort of way of tackling the topic. It might be Ryukishi here admitting that he can't stop the cycle of bullying, but he can't stop people from bullying and being bullies, but he can stop bullying at least temporarily, and that's, I think, a good thing. I think it's being able to protect yourself in the immediate future is a very positive outcome.
Yeah, I think it's good that he's proposing solutions, even though it is a very tricky topic, obviously.
It's unclear if Yukari can actually educate these students and change them in any meaningful way, but she can put a stop to it at least while she's in this class, and probably in the next class too.
She can do the best she can, I think, is the important thing.
More importantly, I think this is a lot more effective than just telling people bullying is wrong, because not everyone's going to accept that message, right? A little bit of oomph behind it goes a long way. And so I agree with this pretty much. It's
that's cool.
It's maybe not something I would condone in any other situation, but in this particular situation, I think it was the best outcome. I wish we had someone else here to debate.
Yeah, I disagree, but I think it's okay to have differing opinions. I think that's why we had the dialogue of this chapter. Sorry,
so what do you think, guys?
And
sorry.
So so there for me the perspective changed. So when I originally read the chapter, my impression was that Ryukishi stands behind this one solution like 100%, and he thinks that's the best way to go about it. But the after-school segment, which we'll come to in detail later on, which basically also raised that whole argument of democracy and versus dictatorship, or compared it at least to that. That made me realize that maybe Ryukishi doesn't stand 100% behind the solution and is just saying this is the best solution that I can come up here, but it's definitely not a good solution, which changes the entire thing, because that would mean that that he tries to raise awareness that something must be done about this situation so that a better solution can be found.
But yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and I personally really liked what this chapter sort of brought to mind, even if it is controversial. Anything else before we move on to the next and last chapter?
I just want to say that this chapter is really deep and philosophical in a way that I wasn't expecting from Higanbana. We get the whole dictatorship versus democracy, and towards the beginning we have the whole, becoming the monster you're trying to fight sort of thing. I thought it was really cool that Ryukishi tackled that.
Yeah. Ryukishi, I'm looking forward to the Rose Guns Days book club, right? Because apparently that gets a lot more into his, sort of ideas about politics and shit. So that should be very interesting if you're kind of enjoying our little political, spin on Higanbana here. Because,
Sounds great.
Higanbana is just, it's focused on a school, right? And, the nature of humanity. But a school is just a microcosm of society. You can just take that and apply most of the messages here to the broader society, and they work. And humanity in general. And that's what I love about Higanbana. It's just, it doesn't limit itself to being just a kid's story. It makes it very clear that these messages are applicable to adults too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a neat little collection of ghost stories with morals that we can apply to our real lives.
I love me some Ryukishi social commentary.
It's very good.
Speaking of utopia, did you know that in Haworthia, the image song for the SNK Automata is called Utopia?
Oh no. What does that mean? What does that mean? Oh.
I can't wait until we get translations of these songs. It's going to be so hype. If you guys haven't been paying attention to the news, Haworthia is an image song album for When They Cry 5, which doesn't exist yet. It's just kind of Ryukishi's just playing this fucked up alternate reality game where he's releasing stuff that's based on a game that doesn't exist yet, and we kind of have to theorize how it might be connected to When They Cry 5. And it seems very interesting so far. I recommend checking out the article if you're interested, because we're going to be keeping an eye on that one. It's a little...
Goodness.
Sorry, that's my little spotlight
That's
there.
okay. We're giving the theory crafters a little taste of what's to come.
Okay, moving on. We have the final chapter of Higanbana, guys, Before the Spider Lilies Bloomed. And this is where we finally get Higanbana's backstory. First, I want to say I was a little bit disappointed with how Higanbana's story didn't really answer any of the questions I had. But it's still a really good backstory nonetheless. So, who wants to talk a little bit about this?
I would love to. So, the final chapter, the best chapter, objectively speaking, is about Higanbana's origin story, basically. Although, as you've mentioned, we don't learn everything. We don't learn where the doll comes from. We don't find out who Nurse is and why she is secretly a yokai. But we get to see the story.
I called it. I told you she'd be irrelevant.
Clearly. She's the worst character. But we get a nice look at where Higanbana comes from, where her kind of life philosophy comes from. Something that I've been talking about since day one Higanbana's not that bad. She's just got a really weird way of executing her moral compass.
Yeah.
We learn that she, in the days where the mysteries were beginning to be created, she fought and killed a whole bunch of lesser mysteries, of ghost stories, and just lived to kind of survive day by day until she met a man by the name of Shuichi, or a boy, I guess, because he's still a student at this point.
Best character.
He was really great. I loved him as the kind of guide to the end of the novel, and a guide to Higanbana.
Yeah.
He was super cool. But the long and the short of it is that she learns about emotions through her interactions with him, because he finds it very useful to express his emotions, both good and bad, by drawing them. I believe he draws leaves, and you can tell just by the indentations, the line thickness, the color, what he was feeling on a given day. And by the end of the chapter, some very bad things happen to him, and Higanbana is driven to become the bully, murdering, crazy, dancing Higanbana that we know and love. Yeah, I really enjoyed this chapter. I think I got all the major points. I was not at all concerned with the fact that we don't get the specifics of Higanbana's origin. I really liked the discussion about how Higanbana is a concept of Higanbana. I thought that was a really neat little kind of meta-narrative going on there. There's a lot of that going in this chapter, I feel, which is probably why I like it so much. The way that Shuichi also talks about his artistry, I feel like is really representative of how Ryukishi approaches his own work. I should see if I can find the quote, but basically he says that he vows to never go a day without drawing a picture of these countless emotions, uncategorizable in terms of normal human emotions. And I feel like that's Ryukishi saying, I am writing these stories to express like humanity, to express the emotions that I feel, to like send messages, like whatever. And if somebody feels uniquely, like if you have a unique experience, you should express it through art. I feel like it's like a really cool thing that he kind of talks about. And Higanbana, as a character, is kind of an expression of Ryukishi's thoughts on bullying, like all the yokai are. Yokai are his leaf drawings that he's using to kind of express all these different aspects of school life, sort of.
They're making the darker, whatever it was.
Yeah, totally. I thought that was really cool. Higanbana comes to a realization that...
Here we go. The darkness of the night had to be even darker. If not, humans would too easily walk right into it.
Yeah.
It's the yokai's duty to scare humans away by dyeing the darkness an even darker black. Which is...
What a beautiful bookend to chapter 1.
And I mean, like, you could argue that this is how yokais were created, like through culture.
Yeah, definitely. They're like, because they're ghost stories, and ghost stories and fairy tales are created to teach morals, right? Like the yokai, the like, as an example, Misa-Misa-san's like ghost story is a cautionary tale against going to the old school building, because there could be all kinds of shady shit in there.
Yeah,
you know, Azami's story is a cautionary tale about, you know, trying to take revenge. Like, all of the ghost stories have a function in society, and Higanbana is no different. And I think it's really cool. We see Ryukishi's kind of inner narrative talking about how the stories that he creates serve that same function. He has a point, and I feel like Shuichi really is Ryukishi at the very end there, when he comes in with his shades on and rocks up to the school to show what,
because it was so sad when he lost his eyesight. I was like devastated. Yeah. That hit me hard.
But he didn't lose his smile.
Well, he did for a while, but he got it back. He got his groove back. And that's so inspiring. I'm so glad Ryukishi like wrote a happy ending for that character. That he was able to transfer his love of drawing into a love of piano. How about that? Love of music.
That's something I basically liked about this last chapter a lot, is the overall, the character of Shuichi, who embraced both the happy feelings but also the sad feelings, since he very much was a bullied child himself. that was for me that kind of message that, well, of course, these are terrible things. It's still just one chapter in life, and not everything is terrible in life. There's also good things. That's kind of also something that I took away.
Mm-hmm. That's something that's a big theme in Higanbana too. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I picked out one of the screenshots where Shuichi reveals himself with his shades and his purple suit and his clip tie, and he says, "My story is not one of eyes or ears. It is a story of feelings. The world itself is grey. It's the emotions in our hearts that give the world its beautiful colours. Whatever the feeling, you should enjoy them, and that is proof that you're alive. That's what I think, and that's what I want to be made clear to you kids." And I feel like Shuichi is just Ryukishi in this moment, being like, "Hey. You should take the things that you see, whether the world is grey, whether the sea is grey, and you should color it with emotions." For myself, I'm leaning towards atheism myself in my personal beliefs. I don't want to get into that too much, but I very much believe that the point of life is not that there is any inherent meaning to it, but that we create meaning through the art that we create. And I feel like that's something that is echoed here in Ryukishi's words, that you should paint the world with your experiences. And I just think that's really cool.
There was some really good quotes about that in this chapter.
100%.
I can't really say any more that hasn't been said already, but I love this chapter.
Yeah, it was really good.
It was good. I think we all agree it was quite a good chapter. Let's take a little bit of a break from the discussion. I just want to look at the fan art we've received for this tea party, this book club. I called it a tea party again, oh my god.
You fool!
That's going to happen with future stuff as well. But anyway,
can't wait for you to call anything else a book club. It's going to be great.
Forumer Higanbana submitted this wonderful art of Sumire and Azumi. This was submitted a little bit earlier in the book club, but I wanted to bring it up now because I don't think, it's more relevant now, I guess, from A Thistle for Vengeance. I don't think we brought that up in the last podcast or an early on, but if we did, I'm sorry for repeating myself. I don't think we did.
It's good artwork.
We have I guess this is like a texture drawing of Higanbana by Forumer Bernkastel with an E. Thank you so much for that. It looks very good. And then we have this another art piece I commissioned by Forumer 310 of Aya and Izanami. I really wanted fan art of these two, so I'm really glad we got some beautiful stuff happening.
So adorable.
Big fan of this particular piece. And last but not least, we also have a fan art by Pockety Hat, who drew Marie holding a Higanbana doll while being I guess this is the hands of kind of
encroached upon.
Encroached upon. That's a good verb. Encroached upon by Kanamori.
Yep. I love the smile.
Encroached
Yeah,
upon.
that's really creepy.
Sick hands. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, there's a lot of detail put into this particular art piece if you zoom in. He was very eager to point out that Higanbana's eyes have a reflection of the flower petals in them, and I think it was the moon. This is really cool. And so I guess now would be a good time to mention that I've decided to select Pockety Hat as our best artist for the book club. Yay! Woo! Congratulations, Pockety Hat. You did some amazing sketches and drawings, and this one in particular kind of tips the scale for me, and I'm like, yeah, I think you deserve the prize. So you can look forward to that soon. Special shout outs to Amenity as well. He also did some wonderful art. In particular, that one art of Higanbana that we showed off last week was very good. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it, but I can only choose one winner, so we went with Pockety Hat this time around. And of course, to all the artists that submitted commissioned art, very awesome. Loved it all. And also, we have an announcement for our top poster for this particular book club. And I've decided to award it to MagusVerborum. Who would have guessed? Yay!
Yay!
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will accept my award on the podium. Rod of Iron.
You need to you need to say that in the Goda voice.
I will accept this award on the podium, Rod of Iron. Thank you.
Your discussions in this book club have been invaluable, and it's really brought a lot of life to it that I couldn't have otherwise. I think, like everyone here, will agree that your contributions were fantastic on the forum and on the podcast. Zosonte, Vice, do you have my back?
Of course.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here. I'm just happy to talk about 07 stuff. Because I've never gotten to do this before. I read Umineko and watched Igarashi on my own, so it was really a fun experience to talk about Higanbana with all of you.
Yeah, it's been fantastic, and I hope we can have your continued support for the upcoming Umineko Tea Party.
What?
No, that's already been announced. You don't have to act surprised.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm leaving. Bye, everybody.
But yes, so if you haven't heard the news, Umineko Answer Arcs are coming out on Steam on the 17th of November. Yeah, that's a thing. It's happening a bit earlier than I thought. I was predicting a December release myself. But it's coming, so we got to do a tea party on it. And I know that Vice here is still new to the series, so I'm hoping to get him on for the discussions particularly.
Yep.
You excited, Vice?
Yeah, I'm confident in my current solution. I want to see if
haven't had
it
the whole
holds
story
up.
spoiled to you yet?
Nope.
That's good. But yeah, I'm very excited to get some new impressions of those chapters, those episodes, and also to like all the veterans who have been into Umineko for so long. This is a great chance to revisit these episodes and look at, why we like them, and just engage in discussion with the new readers, because we're kind of reaching a point now where the new readers will be equipped with the same knowledge as the old readers, and will be able to more freely discuss things as a single unified collective. And that's what I always appreciate about discussing these answer arcs in Higurashi and Umineko. So that's going to be really awesome. Can't wait to get into that with you guys. And just to get back on track, I want to finish this up by bringing it back to Higanbana. So let's talk about the series as a whole. Now that we've finished the whole thing, I want to ask everyone, what does Higanbana mean to you? I'm going to start with Zosonte.
Okay, so Higanbana to me was a test. It was a test from Ryukishi to me to see if I could still keep my faith in humanity. Because I grew up a cynical, pessimistic, angry at the world kind of guy. But recently, after discovering the works of Ki, the works of Ryukishi even, finding faith, valuing life, family, friends, such as that, I'm glad that Higanbana was the last stepping stone I had. I love it. I will never fall into those pits again. And I thank Ryukishi for just being there as my sensei, my Izanami.
Ryukishi is our Izanami. Love it. That's really good. I know this is very much a sort of story that really confronts the harsh realities of humanity, but it's still optimistic despite the fact that it presents such horrible tendencies for how humans can act. It always, almost always, brings about a positive spin on it, that if we work together, if we keep at it, then we can be good people and do the right thing, I guess. And yeah, it's a very good message to gain from Higanbana. VyseGolbez, what does Higanbana mean to you?
To me, Higanbana made me pretty early on already reflect on bullying in general, and to me it's trying to raise awareness on that topic. So it caused me to talk about that with my mom, which I mentioned in the second podcast.
Yep.
And so to me, it's actually more really important that others through this work also reflect on that topic. And so I'm kind of wishing that people who think that bullying is not a problem or that it doesn't concern them read that and evaluate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that I've really been glad that a lot of people are reading Higanbana now for the first time so that they can better take that message upon their own lives. Magus, what does Higanbana mean to you?
I loved Higanbana. I loved going through the whole thing. I loved the ups and downs. I loved the bits that I agree with. I loved the bits that I didn't. I found that there were two kind of primary points that stood out to me as being very, very important to me. One, that I've talked about a little bit, the motif of the Higanbana blooming, the general lesson of good things coming out of negative things, of humans who are in very dark places coming forward to the other side. I personally have felt in my past, during my own schooling life, that I've been in some pretty dark places. Not quite in the capacity to commit violence, but I very much resonate with a lot of the messages that's being told about abuse in schools and how all that works, how that discussion works, dealing with student-on-student conflict. And so for me, I felt like the lesson that you can come out the other side of something really bad with something really good, I think that was just really important to me. The other thing that really stood out to me is just the way that Ryukishi seems to be commenting on his own writing. The way that he's written in the past, the way that he writes now, his reasons for like expressing his views on the world, the importance of talking about issues.
It's almost like Higanbana is like a self-reflective work. And he's just kind he's having a dialogue with himself.
Yeah. I loved that so much. I loved that we got to see a little peek into his heart there, his little writing heart, and see why he does what he does. I think that you can infer a lot from Umineko and Higurashi, but the fact that a lot of it is a lot more explicit in Higanbana. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it...
Even in like the what's it called? The after school special. Like, the way that he presents his characters and their sort of ideologies sort of conflicting with each other is, like, a great way of fully representing that Higanbana doesn't have one stance on any particular issue. And it's...
Definitely.
There's many different answers.
Brief tangent. Personally, I do a lot of tabletop role-playing games, which I'm not going to go into too much, but basically the idea is that you sit around a table with a bunch of nerds and you play a character. And I personally, I'm always playing the controversial character. I'm always playing the character that is designed to poke at everyone else's, be like, why do you think this way? Why do you think that way? So seeing the after school special and seeing the way that Ryukishi pits his characters against each other, like, that's very much how I play when I'm playing a character or when I'm running the game. I care about seeing how far I can push people's characters that they've made, what kind of moral dilemmas that we can create through characters that their ideologies are subjective, they're not necessarily perfect. I enjoy just throwing characters together and seeing what comes out of it, and I think that's a lot of what Ryukishi has done with these ghost stories. Yeah. I don't know. I really enjoyed the whole thing. I thought that it was really fantastic, and I would recommend it, especially to anyone who's read Umineko and Higurashi, because it sheds a lot of light on his thought process there.
Yeah.
How
As for
about
me,
you, Aspi?
Yeah, so I guess it's been a wild journey. I first I wasn't ready to read Higanbana for a while after I finished Umineko, because when I was off the tail end of Umineko, I really wanted something similar, and seeing Higanbana was nothing like Umineko, I was a bit dissuaded from reading it. So it took me how many years has it been now?
Too many.
7, 8, something like that. I want to say 7. however many years it's been to finally sit down and read it. And I think the one thing that really helped me enjoy it the most is clearing my mind of any preconceptions I had based on Umineko or Higurashi, and just seeing what Ryukishi had just tell to me. I just had to keep myself completely open. And that's how I enjoyed Higanbana the most, because I was able to take on each of these stories and just reflect upon them, and how I can relate them to my own life. And it's just being open to that was really led to me enjoying it a lot more. And so, how do I recommend Higanbana to people? I recommend it to people who are struggling finding meaning in life, that have difficulties in social interactions, in society, and people who might have lost their way. I feel like Higanbana is an excellent work to experience in a time of crisis, and it can give you some signposts of how perhaps to act in your own life when faced with difficult situations. And I particularly recommended this to a few people I know who are experiencing hardship in their own life, and those are the people that seem to come out with it with the best impressions. Those are the people that the story really resonates with. And of course you can read the first chapter of Higanbana and be a bit turned off by how for lack of a better word, edgy it is. But once you read the second chapter, you realize maybe it's not all so doom and gloom. Maybe there is hope here. And so seeing the chapter with Takeshi and Yoko able to reconcile their differences despite having, one having caused the other to commit suicide, and still being able to see each other as human and empathize with each other is so damn touching. And that's kind of what set the tone for the rest of the visual novel for me. Whereas I won't even say that's my favorite chapter, but the way it set the tone was really remarkable. And it's if we want to talk about chapters I liked that one. I liked Utopia a lot. I liked Reaper of the 13th Step was my favorite, absolutely. And then I liked This with a Vengeance and The Boy's Portrait, and of course the last one, Before the Spider Lilies Bloomed. They're all amazing chapters, and with really profound messages that, just by listening to this podcast, you can see how we've applied these to the greater world that's outside the small microcosm of a school environment. And it gives you a lot to think about, and it's made me reflect on my own life and how I treat people. And damn, this is something that people need to read at some point. I know it's not very popular, but I am going to go out of my way from now on to recommend this story to people, especially those that are dealing with hardships in their own life. You guys need to read this. It's good shit. So I am very thankful for everybody who has joined me on this journey. It was a bit of a troubled book club in many ways. A lot of people ended up dropping out midway for various circumstances. But to those that are still reading it, please don't give up. Please make sure you read the story to the end, because there's some really important messages that I want the readers to get from this story. And it's worth struggling through. So thank you to those that did stick through. All you guys here, Magus, Zosonte, Vice. We got more on the forum. I don't want to miss anybody. We should make a list of everyone who's participated. To a lesser extent, Carafian. We got Hollyhawk. We got Sakuya Alex is another new member that has been posted really good things on this book club. Of course, we have people like Picto Shark and Arietta, and the number of people that kind of dropped out midway. We got Kyuketsuki Mew. Soggy Sad Boy was going to write a bunch of posts on this, but he lost all of his notes. So he wrote a big post for every chapter, and he lost them all. So a moment of silence for those notes that we're never going to see. Maybe he'll write something about Higanbana someday. There's been a lot of people that posted this book club, and I'm not going to bother listing all of them right now, but you know who you are, and I really appreciate those of you that have taken the effort to read the story with me and share your thoughts And really, like, thank you for sharing your thoughts, because we talked about this a lot in the last podcast, but it's so good that people are feeling up to the task of expressing their innermost feelings about this story without fear of judgment, without feeling like what they've said has already been said, and I really appreciate that. So thank you once more, and yeah.
It was wonderful.
That was very rambly, I'm sorry.
No, it was beautiful. I loved it.
Higanbana is beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm just Aspi.
Mayhaps a flower could bloom from death.
You're beautiful, Aspi.
No.
Now kiss.
Okay, I think it's time to wrap this up, guys. So, thank you to everyone who joined us for this book club. It's been a joy, and I hope you've enjoyed these podcasts and discussions. So, please share Higanbana with your friends, spread the word, and yeah, let's do what we can to make this crazy world a better place to live. With that said, see you next night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
月が今照らし出した本当